Jose, my friend, how are you?
Makund, I'm well on this spring day. How about yourself?
You're in upstate New York today. I see a beautiful place that you're at. It's red compared to your usual box. So this box is a nicer box.
I like this box. This box is usually my box in New York City is a little more New York City like. This one's a little bit more bright and springy. I like it.
Yeah. No, I think that is amazing. The interesting part is when we met a couple of months ago or a month ago now, it seems like a couple of months, a month ago, we were talking about all of our boxes, right? I've got my box as well, but my box is my office, which is my daughter's room converted to my office, right? Because everybody is out at college. So they keep coming back every time they come back for a holiday or for being at home. They're like, what do you do to our room? Because I like it very bare basic. I'm very,
Sure.
very simple. I mean, I remove everything that is a distraction for me. Usually I'll have two or three things in my desk and that's it. I don't want anything more. So they look at it and go, I've taken everything and put it in their closet. So it
That's
becomes
great.
interesting that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone has a
Awesome.
different take on things.
Awesome. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, which we were talking about it in a couple of different situations that seems to come up every time for us is one of the customers that I was talking to, I think this was in our event. This was about a couple of days ago. There's a small company that is called Brave. Okay. They're based in San Francisco. The guy that came was the head of e-commerce for Brave. And this guy, I'll connect you to him on email anyway. This guy was most of his customers are large companies like Walmart and other brands. And what they do is they are trying to get external signals that people are searching for and saying on LLMs such as ChatGPT and other places, and figuring out what are people talking about in those areas? What are people saying? What are questions being asked? So they could also make sure that they could make their website better to be able to cater to those or make sure that it is, I think some people are calling it AI SEO. Some people are calling it generative engine optimization. Some people are calling it LLM optimization, but that seems to be a
Sure.
theme overall, right? So I know that one of the things we wanted to talk about today was signals, signals everywhere. Let's start with your intent. You've been talking to a lot of customers. Give us a little bit of background just in the B2C world and in the commerce world. What are some of the signals that people are looking for? How are they doing it right now?
Interesting. So a lot of the signals that they're using is third-party data in order to enrich the full ecosystem and enrich uh, the type of customer information that they may already have. The issue with what's there is that sometimes it's not only limited, right? So there's a finite amount that they have access to, but because there's so many providers. But the other issue is that it tends to be quite static, right? There isn't a mechanism to refresh things. So I think that their issues are really not enough, let's say, rich information to enrich, number one.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
two, it's just static, right? You need to refresh, and there isn't a good mechanism to do this right now.
So tell me a little bit about this whole enrichment capability. Now, a lot of data that people get is from their website. They watch what people do on their website. For example, someone comes to for example, category page, or they go to a product listing page, PLP, or product detail page. They go to the product detail page. They may be looking at multiple images. They get all of this data that is behavioral data on the website. And based on that, some people might segment and send a campaign or an automation just for people. For example, they know that if you looked at the pricing a couple of different times, you added it to your cart, they send you a cart abandonment email saying, hey, we noticed that you added to the cart, but you didn't buy. Do you want us to help you with something? Do you have any questions? But there's also a big value in external data intent, which is what one of the things that we talk about, right? The O graph. Are customers talking about it? What kind of data do e-commerce companies and brands need to be able to explore getting data from outside that could help them make better campaigns and better conversions?
Sure, that's a really good question. So a lot of it is uh the basics, right? So maybe because there's limitation of data, you don't get all of the at the basic level, you should have an email, right? But you not might not have the right address. And remember, each individual, you or I, let's take us as case studies or use cases, may have different emails. That's not all captured, right? If you don't have enough, let's say, leverage of outside data,
Yeah.
then you can't have a full enrichment. So there are multiple email addresses. There may be multiple addresses, physical addresses, right? There could be different names for the same person. And so that's at the very basic level. So here we're just talking about uh, having something on the outside that'll help you put things together to create a single view of a at the customer level and also at the household level, but you need that
Mm.
extra to make it happen.
Yeah.
That
So
makes
you're
sense?
saying both at the individual level and a household level. Tell me more. What does that mean?
That means that currently systems right now, uh, so at the first level, first tier, it's you have to get data at the individual level, right? But
Yeah.
sometimes people share accounts. And so that's when you have to put it together as a household. And it's not always clear from a marketing standpoint in the current state that it is a household. And a lot of times that's what you have the issue of disparate data that isn't able to do that, right? Which is actually something that we can do.
When you say people share accounts, is that they share their Amazon account or do they share their Chrome account? What kind of sharing are you talking about?
Sure. So it could easily be it could be Amazon. It could be anything like this that you're trying to use as a basis to better understand your customers, right? It depends on your use case, right, of what they're sharing in terms of a household. It could be sometimes um, something as simple as even an email that's shared, but it may be two different people.
Oh, wow. Okay, got it. Now, when you look at the signals that we provide, there's obviously a whole host of signals that can come in, enrich the data that you have within your system, and be able to give you a much better segmentation capability that improves conversion. That's the pitch that we make to a lot of B2C and e-commerce companies, correct? Now,
Yes,
when they set that up, when they want to set it up to be able to make sure they get the right signals that they could use in the right format, how long do they usually take to be able to set this up? Does it take days and weeks, or does it take months and years?
it usually on their end, it usually takes a few weeks, right? Which could be up to a month or so, or a little bit over a month, right? It's not like a long, long time, but still it's in our world, it is a long time.
Yeah, yeah. Do you see a lot of customers when you're talking to a lot of customers, you've been in completely end-to-end discussion. By the way, you have a very good event coming up on the 1st of May in Boston. End of May, you have another event coming up in New York. Now, most of these customers, when they talk about the data enrichment capability that they need, do they put it into a data warehouse kind of a system, or do they pull it into their a CRM system? How does that, are they expecting intent signals to be put into the CRM system, or are they doing it somewhere else?
It depends on the customer, but generally, I mean, the way to do it is in your data warehouse, right? I mean, that's where you have a single repository of data that's general enough for you to get the most value for the signals, rather than, specific modules or tools where it's a little bit, let's say, more specialized.
Yeah. When you look at these signals that come in, one of the things that is always fascinating, I'll give you an example on
Yeah,
the
sure.
on the B2B side. Let me give you an example, right? One of the things that a lot of customers want to know, I'll give you an account level signal usually is this company going to, or the company has raised, let's say, a round of funding,
Sure.
Series A to Series B. They raised a round of funding. Usually, when it happens, when they raise a round of funding, the immediate next step is to be able to put together a pedal to metal on go to market, right? That's what all companies do. When you get a lot of money coming in, usually the company is saying the reason we raise the money is to scale up our business, meaning we're doing well right now with what we're doing, but we want to scale it up faster. That means go to market. It's
Sure.
usually they will have some money that they spend on engineering and things of that nature, but the big focus is okay, I'm going to spend a lot more money on engineer for on go to market. So that's the account level signal. And then when you get to the individual level signal, okay, within the individual level signal, if you look at a B2B company that is enterprise, usually there's three or four different roles. There's a lead generation role, there's a product marketing role, and there's a growth role. So the growth role person, all of these guys are trying to solve a little bit of a different problem for their own cases, right? The signals that are most relevant typically tend to be, are you looking for a email automation solution? That's usually what the lead generation person is doing. Are you looking for a solution to be able to do LinkedIn advertising? That's usually what an agency wants to know. Those kind of signals are very, very useful. On the e-commerce side, when you look at the companies that you're talking to, you've got talked to a lot of apparel customers, you've talked to a lot of product companies as well that sell products online. Which signals seem to be the most relevant for them? Give me an example of one of the companies that is using one of our signals or looking at talking to us about using one of the signals that might be most useful for them to do better conversion.
Yeah, really, really good question. So what they're looking for are signals that, as I mentioned earlier, are not uh, static at all, but continually refreshed, right? Because a lot of times they may have, there's a couple of cases. Let's go with case one, use case one. They may have signals. They may think that they have enough, but the problem is that it's not continually refreshed.
Yeah, yeah,
That's plain vanilla. And so that's a problem. At the next level, it's always comes down to some type of customer data signal, right? Specifically, and consumer, as we were talking about, household, because you really ultimately, once you get the signals, what you're looking to do, Mukund, is segment, right? And the cleaner the signal, the better you're able to refine your different categories of customers that you
yeah,
have. And so what they're looking to do at that level is really just enrich that basic customer data. And it sounds like a
mm,
very trivial problem, uh, but it isn't, because really the type of data that we see with folks that we're talking to, it's not as robust as one would think, or it's not as robust as they think it is once we take a look at it.
yeah. On the analytics side, how do they see the conversion show up with external data? Where would you see the uplift? Would it be more in the types of campaigns and the segmentation that they do, or in more? They should be able to see more conversion. So if you look at the funnel
Yeah,
of a typical B2C company, right? It's they do a lot of campaigns, also word of mouth, but word of mouth is a little bit more harder to measure. They do have a lot of affiliates and things of that nature, links that they give out, but they have people coming at the top of the funnel, and usually most of these things typically tend to be minutes, if not hours, in terms of conversion to put it in the cart, buy it, right? So if they go through that kind of scenario, would a signal be able to, obviously, there are different things a signal can do. A signal can make the offer better. A signal can hopefully use personalization to showcase the right products that might be more relevant for the customer. A signal could do a whole host of things, right? Um, do the companies and the e-commerce side have the infrastructure in place to be able to take the signals and do something with them? Or is it still where their maturity curve is a little bit behind, where we can give them all the signals they want, but they won't be able to make the changes to their infrastructure to be able to do something which improves conversion?
good question. So it's the latter, right? So they have signals, but they can't tie everything together in order to cross the bridge, right? So it's like trying to cross a river without the bridge. And as they build a bridge across, it's not easy to do, because it comes down to this whole issue of who is the exact customer, as we talked about earlier, because of all these emails and addresses that they're trying to put together, and they're stitching that together. So what happens is the it's good enough, but it's not optimized, right? That's the problem. And so basically what's happening, McClund, is there isn't a better solution that they know of, which is why they're leaving money on the table,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so it's hard to really stitch it all together. And that's the core issue that they're grappling with.
Yeah. No, I think I absolutely agree with you. The interesting part, I'll tell you, I had a good discussion. I have a very good, about four or five friends of mine run agencies that are Klaviyo agencies. Okay.
Okay.
All they focus on is just email, SMS automation. They tell their customers email is the number one channel for consumer businesses. B2C businesses, email is the number one channel. They only do two things. You try and get new customers that come in via Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, and then you convert more customers to buy more. You improve your conversion and you improve the amount of money you get from your existing customers with email, SMS, whatever, messaging, right? You have a good list, you got to make most of that list. And getting the signals on the existing list, being able to expand that and get more specific relevancy of offers is just an amazing thing for a lot of these agencies, which is why I've been talking to a lot of agencies, telling them, hey, do you want this? Can we help you a lot more? Um, and that seems to be the message that a lot of people are resonating with. But I think almost always they will find that they want to do a small experiment, see what data they get, make that work, see if that is useful, and then keep iterating, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's the name of the game because uh, there's so much newness that's coming out, right? And there's so many plays that's what makes it fun nowadays in marketing. What really makes it fun is that there's a lot of flexibility to do different things, to do these experiments, but at the same time, we're able to measure them, right? Because sometimes you do experiments and it's a hard slog and you don't always have good metrics to measure them. But now we can. If this conversation with Glenn were taking place 5 years ago, a
Yeah.
lot of what we're talking about would not be possible.
Let's talk to the other side, but for attribution. I know that attribution is important because you've been mentioning that in all of our discussions when we talk to customers as well. At what point or what size of company does attribution become really important? Is it important for companies less than 5, 10 million in revenue, or is it important only for when you get to that size or bigger?
I think roughly that size or even bigger, right? When you start to scale, right? And it's all a function not necessarily of size, but more maturity on the back end in terms of being able to, let's say, manage data on their end,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So let's think of it this way. It's more a function of stage. Sure, we could put a revenue number on there, but as a company scales, the problem becomes much more acute. And like you really see the attribution problem staring you in the face. Whereas when it's smaller, yeah, sure, it's there, but because it's not as big as it would be one day, it's obvious, but you could still kind of live with it, right?
yeah, yeah.
Because
I think live, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, because a lot of the processes at the early stages are all uh, manual for the most part. So you could do it, but then when you scale, it has to be automated.
I agree with you 100%. Awesome. This was good, Jose. I'm glad that we got a chance to be able to talk about this. I'm going to